Thank you all for your patience, and hopefully Mr. Forham will be here shortly. In the meantime, we are going to go ahead and call our September 11th Board of Supervisors meeting to order, and we will start with an invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand, please, for invocation. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, on this 9/11 day, let us not forget, but give us the strength to remember all those within and around the Twin Towers who worked together so valiantly to help one another. For the firefighters who rushed up while others rushed out. For the police officers who stood to protect and defend the people and perform their duties until the towers came down. We remember and give thanks for all and for their great courage and selfless service and sacrifice for the safety of others. We remember the many lives lost. We grieve for the loss of human life, and we ask that you watch over their families and the loved ones left behind. Help us to remember to give thanks for those who did survive and who live on in life and love. And then remember those who, after the dust had settled and the recovery began, who helped, who comforted and rushed in to be a part of the recovery and the cleanup afterwards. We give thanks for all that they did. Now, Holy Father, be with this board as we endeavor to make wise decisions for the well-being of our Caroline County family. Watch over Virginia and our neighbors during the upcoming storm, and help us to work together to serve all those in need. These things we pray in your name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time we will start with opening board comments. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make? Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you mentioned so gracefully during your prayer, of course, this is the anniversary of 9/11, and we give honor again to those who lost their lives. Remember the everyday heroes who rushed in, and on another note, recommit ourselves to living the American dream and making sure it's available for all. I'd also want to mention the passing of a dear friend, local legend, World War II veteran, and family friend for all my life, Mr. Jimmy Farmer, who passed away yesterday. Our thoughts and prayers are, of course, with him and his family. I attended the 30th year County Park, and that was last Saturday, the anniversary celebration, and it's grown from just an open area to baseball fields with lights, skateboard area, basketball courts, and now cross-country track. And that reminded me of a couple of other activities. Ironically, I see one of them here. But 10 years ago, the county dedicated the bridges for Trooper Farmer and Trooper Lohr. That was recently in the newspaper, the anniversary last week of Trooper Farmer's death. And we're honored to have with us the, I hope I get the title right, the former curator of the Smithsonian Library, Mr. Herb Collins. And in going through my hoarding stash of papers, I recall that 10 years ago, Mr. Collins donated his book collection to the Caroline Library. So we thank you for that. And I believe there's some other anniversaries, like next year we'll have a 10-year for the All-American Cities. So we need to make sure we get all those publicized and broadcast. And that's it, Madam Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Anyone else? Mr. Black?
Yeah, I want to reiterate the comments of Mr. Thomas. we had an opportunity to go to the 30th anniversary celebration of Parks and Rec, and so that was kind of neat to hear a little bit of the history behind it, and it's come a long way. Being a participant in some of the programs, at least the softball, it's Mr. Howard does a great job, and it's always fun. And like I said there, it's always nice to kind of get out there and get away from kind of life for an hour as we play the game. So really appreciate everything that he's done. Just want to make sure that everyone's okay in the storm. Wishing everyone safety as the storm approaches, and that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Seeley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Parks and Rec 30th anniversary celebration was interesting for me in that the former county administrator, Mr. Ansavino, was there to talk about the actual creation of the park and actually the purchase of the land that I don't think anybody's really thought about the poorhouse track and where it came from and how it came to be. And the folks from the Richmond Department of Recreation were there to talk about the park system in general. One of the interesting things that we learned from Mr. Ansavino, and for those that don't know, Mr. Eldon James is down here in the front row tonight. He was actually the Parks and Rec director for King George before he was the county administrator, which I thought was interesting. That was a factoid I did not know that was brought out. Mr. Ansavino seemed to say that Mr. James was very well versed in Parks and Rec and knew all about how that land was purchased and how the money was actually allocated by the state. And, you know, what $85,000 was spent for the park and what a great deal that was when you look at it today. So I just thought I'd pass that on for the folks that didn't know. In the case, the man up here in the front row, white hair, can't miss him, is Mr. Eldon James. I would like to also echo Mr. Thomas's sentiment about Mr. Jimmy Farmer. He is a dear friend of mine, also served in the Navy like I did. We talked many times about his service, and he will be greatly missed. He is the last native of Caroline World War II veteran, which is a sad time for Caroline. There are no native to Caroline County veterans from World War II left. That is a very sad time, and it's going to be sad that those memories will fade, and I'm hoping we can do something to keep them alive. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Underwood.
Just one comment. Just want to certainly support the comments from my fellow board members regarding remembering 9/11. As Madam Chair so mentioned in her prayer, I think it's a time that we all focus on our mission to make sure that we're better tomorrow than we were today. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things. One, I wanted to thank the school board for including some information on things going on in the school in our packet and an effort to keep communications going a little bit better. I also wanted to let everyone know that I attended the Baco regional meeting along with Mr. Culley and Mr. Parton this past month, that we have the George Washington Regional Commission and VAPO meetings coming up this week. If you all have anything that you need me to bring up, gentlemen, please let me know. And tomorrow will be the AP Hill Executive Steering Committee, which will be hosted by the town of Port Royal at 9 a.m. If anybody is interested. I also would like to extend my thanks to the Park and Recs and Public Works staff for the anniversary celebration on the 30th. It's a shame the weather didn't totally cooperate, but it could have been a lot worse. It wasn't bad, actually. And I wish more people had come out because the kids had a great time on all the bouncy stuff out back. And it was a lot of fun. I also wanted to let everyone know we lost Mr. Sean Nelson from VDOT, and our new representative is Kyle Bates, and I think he'll be coming up fairly soon for a quarterly report to the board, but I've had to call him for a few issues in my district, and I found him very responsive, to the point that I wrote Sean a note and said, "You trained him well, thanks for leaving us in good hands, but you're always welcome back." But he apparently is doing very well in Richmond. So I think at that time,
Madam Chair,
yes.
One other. In the event of the storm, I was at a Sparta Fire Department meeting last night, and they were concerned about the lakes and ponds at 840 AP Hill because during the last storm event, all those overran their banks and caused a lot of flooding. We lost the fire station, basically due to the overload of water that came over the dams and dams that broke. I talked to the colonel this morning, and they started yesterday releasing water from all the ponds and lakes at AP Hill to lower the levels to give us some cushion against any huge deluge of rain we get in the very beginning to sort of spare everybody downstream, and I thought that was a great point. I was glad that the Sparta Fire Department asked me to make the call, and I did talk to Chief Loftus this morning about that very topic. So just that you can tell them thanks for that at your meeting tomorrow.
Thank you. I'll be glad to do that. Thank you for bringing me up to date. And I believe Chief Loftus will at some point tonight.
Whenever you want.
Okay. Has some reports for us on the upcoming storm, and I think this would be appropriate time while we're waiting for Mr. Forehand to go ahead and do that, Chief. We've got citizens here before they get their presentations and leave. Want to make sure that everybody's aware if we do have issues as to how we're to react.
Now, Madam Chair, on that same note, we, and I'm sure I sent it to Chief, we got a note from the Army that said to expect additional tractor-trailer traffic coming through the county because they're going to use Fort AP Hill as a staging area. And I think he's got one for you. So that's another thing we'll see now.
FEMA's using
FEMA's going to use Fort AP Hill as a staging area. So that's another one we may have a closer interaction that maybe we can help, get county residents support if they need it as soon as possible.
Okay. I don't know whose water bottle this is.
Madam Chair, members of the board, good evening. And before you have a packet, and that packet is the displays you have on the front are from a little bit earlier today. Another information release came out, and I'll talk about that briefly. But basically, you're all aware that we do have a hurricane approaching the coast, and it will affect Caroline County and Virginia as a whole. Overall, the governor has declared a state of emergency for Virginia and ordered mandatory evacuations of surge inundation zones in Hampton Roads, and that's already underway. As far as Caroline County goes, your staff, your officials across all spectrums met today face-to-face and discussed everybody's preparedness efforts. And I've included on a separate sheet some of those things that those talked about in those meetings. So overall, I think I'm very comfortable, Mr. Culley is very comfortable that the county is moving forward in its preparedness efforts. The storm as of now, and as of the sheets you have in front of you, we're looking at about somewhere in the neighborhood of between 6 and 10 inches of rain. Now that's a big spread. So on the sheet you have in front of you, again, that was of 11 o'clock this morning, we were getting more rain. As of the most recent update I got, they backed it down because the track is staying further to the south and to the west, staying in North Carolina and not coming to Virginia. So the updated forecast tomorrow will be about 6 inches of rain for Caroline County. Also, with that change in track, our wind speeds dropped down a little bit as well. So we dropped down about 30 to 40%. We would see gusts and winds sustained above 40 miles an hour. That's tropical force storm. So for us, things are improving. We'll look again at 8 o'clock in the morning to see if that trend continues or if there's another change. But regardless, we put out a message today. It's on the county website already to urge citizens to prepare for a significant amount of water and significant winds. And with that, with all the moisture we've had, you can expect trees down, power to be out as well. One thing I will ask of the board, because you do have a meeting and it's timely, that I am requesting, along with Mr. Culley, that the board declare a local emergency so that we can, if we need to, evacuate. What we're looking at right now is the campgrounds, because again, those folks have secondary homes, they're in lightweight structures. We want to get the folks out of there if we can to do that before the storm hits us. So again, I'm looking for a local declaration, and then we'll see how things look in the morning for evacuation. Any questions?
If we have to open up a shelter, where will it be?
If we have to open, it'll be the high school.
Oh, it'll be not the middle school?
That's correct. We spoke with the school, and they believe that generator for the high school is better equipped than the middle school right now. And so that's the...
Okay. Because I've had a couple of questions. If we have to open, where will it be?
That would be there.
Not here?
Not here. And the reason for that, if we have to open a shelter, we're going to open the EOC. I don't want to have a sheltering operation and EOC operation
Gotcha.
conflicting with each other.
Now, Chief, you will be the point of contact as you were during all emergencies for donations and things of that nature?
Post-storm, we'll set that up,
Post-storm.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. Again, I'm hoping that the trend continues, and we skirt the most hard part of it, but we're going to flood in some areas. That's a given.
Chief, have they given you a duration? Like, in other words, I mean, Friday to Sunday, I mean, Thursday to...
Yeah, if you look on your map, I know it's hard to see. Friday, 9 p.m. is the last real wind band that's marked on this map. So you're going to see effects in the county through Saturday, probably till Sunday morning.
Starting Friday?
Oh, starting, you're going to see, I think you're going to see stuff here. The most likely is 9 p.m. on Thursday.
Okay.
That is the most likely data that we'll have. We'll start to see effects here in Carolina. And that's as of 11 o'clock. That may change tomorrow, but that's the data we have.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I guess it's going to keep the pirates out of Port Royal.
I think so. But if we could get the board to vote on the resolution, is that correct?
Yes.
We're going to add it to new business when
Yes,
we
ma'am.
enter the
Thank you.
agenda. Thank you. All right. We have no power up here. Anybody, Joey, you want to take a look and see if you have any ideas as to why we don't have power?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Is yours not on either?
I'm not charging, yeah.
That's a Mr. Sheeble thing.
Good catch, Mrs. Black. Thank you. All right,
Now I
so
do.
got it?
What was that?
I don't.
What did he do?
I don't.
Is your,
Yeah, me too. What did he do?
don't lose my water.
Oh, gee whiz.
Yep. You want me to go on? I'm a little shorter than you are. Watch your head. This is what we missed Mr. Brown. We miss you, Mr. Brown. Yep,
I was hoping.
they'll learn. You got it now? All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shable. All right, that takes us to amendments to the agenda. We have all heard the chief ask for a declaration of a local emergency, and I would think we would put that under new business.
Madam Chair, why don't you add that to consent agenda? I don't think you'll have any at
Consent
all.
agenda? Okay,
dispute.
good idea, that'll work.
As I'll move that we add declaring a local emergency as agenda or consent agenda item I.
All right. Any other changes to the agenda or additions? Hearing none, can I have a motion for the agenda to be approved?
So move, Madam Chairman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
You did that.
All opposed? So moved. All right. This brings us to presentations, and it is with great joy that I am anxious to present the 50th anniversary resolution to the Carolina Historic Society, and we even have one of the founding members. Mr. Collins, you were a founding member, weren't you?
I'm the only one living now.
Well, you just keep hanging in there. You know, there's got to be a 75th anniversary around the corner.
When we dedicated the portrait of Queen Caroline, I outlined the idea of having a Carolina Historical Society. We met in the basement a few years later over at Mulberry Place with Winston Woolfolk, and we drew up the Carolina Historical Society at that site.
Well, we are very glad that you did. So I will read this, And then I'm going to ask if the members of the Historic Society who are here with us today would come up on stage, correct? Is that where you want them at? Yes, for pictures. All right. A resolution celebrating the 50th anniversary of Caroline Historic Society Incorporated. Whereas small historical societies play an important role in communities by protecting and preserving the historical record and interpreting the past to the public in the belief that a firm knowledge of the past will create a brighter future. And whereas in 1968, a group of local citizens gathered to form the Caroline Historic Society Incorporated, as we know, CHS, as a nonprofit organization for the purpose of educating and preserving the history of Caroline County, Virginia, and whereas over the past 50 years, this core group has grown to include well over 100 members and has accumulated thousands of documents and artifacts related to Caroline County's history that are preserved and displayed for the general public's education and enjoyment. And whereas the Caroline Historical Society and its members have been steadfastly dedicated to its mission of providing educational opportunities by collecting and displaying artifacts, recording and distributing historic information, scheduling programs relative to the history of the community, and arranging appropriate field trips to sites of significance to the county's past. And whereas Caroline County wishes to honor the work and accomplishments of the Caroline Historic Society on this special occasion and thank its members for their many contributions to the county throughout the years. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby extends its heartfelt congratulations to the Caroline Historic Society on the occasion of its 50th anniversary and sends its best wishes for much continued success in the years to come. Adopted this 11th day of September 2018, signed by Charles Cully and Nancy Long, Chairman. And thank you all very much for all your service. Well done. Stephanie, come on up. Thank you all so much for all the hard work you do to keep history alive. They've even branched out. Now we have a historic Port Roll that's very active, thanks to Mr. Collins down in Port Roll on 301. So we're just keeping history going in Caroline. I love to see it. Our next presentation is Eldon James, but I don't think he's going to talk about parks tonight. Parks are a lot more interesting to me, but that's okay.
Could be more fun.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Eldon James, your regional legislative liaison, it's wonderful to be with you again. Hard to believe we're on the cusp of getting ready for another General Assembly session to begin in January. And Mr. Supervisor Seeley, thank you for the trip down memory lane. I appreciate that. Actually, my first job out of graduate school was a grants administrator with the old Virginia Commission of Outdoor Recreation, agency that doesn't exist anymore, which later became what is now DCR, who you were referring to earlier. And one of those projects we helped develop was this one in Caroline before I moved on. And then I had the good fortune, when I was Parks and Recreation Director across the river in King George, to have a young intern by the name of Donnell Howard, who has now long been your Parks and Recreation Director. He did a wonderful job in the summer for me and then came to work for you guys across the river. And I'm just happy to see him flourishing here and your Park and Recreation program doing so well. Okay, with that, on to why I'm here. The regional platform, the draft one dated August 1st, you had in advance of the meeting. I've been making the circuit, been with the folks up at Rapidan Regional Commission, been with some of the other governing bodies within the 11 jurisdictions that work together, and been taking input from staff. You have several priority issues that we identified, the Children's Services Act, the issue with cash and off-site proffers and impact fees, and some issues surrounding smart scale. What I'm hearing back is those clearly are the priority issues, but broadband probably should be brought up off of that other issues list and moved to the priority. I'm hearing that both in this end of the larger region, George Washington area, as well as in the Rappahannock-Rapidan area. So we're starting to take that kind of input and develop draft 2. And so I'm here tonight to, rather than repeat all this, you have it, you're familiar with many of these issues, most of these issues, if not all of them. And any questions or comments you've got, as part of what I'll take back to the larger group as we develop draft 2. With that, Madam Chair, I'm open to answer questions and take my notes.
Mr. Thomas.
Mr. James, good to see you, and you look just like you did before.
Right, yeah, thank you. So you, Mr. Thomas.
I never had hair, so. The point I had, you've addressed in moving broadband up.
Yeah.
But my notes say that we should have a stronger broadband statement, because this is, it's one paragraph or 3 sentences, and it needs to reflect the real desire and the impact of the lack of broadband. And my thoughts were to include language such as it hinders school learning. Our students don't necessarily have access to the internet at home, so therefore they're at a distinct disadvantage. And I know of several business owners who have contacted me. They're running home businesses, so there are many lost business opportunities. And I think we should put things like that in the legislative agenda so that it can make some sort of impact enrichment. And I'm sure if you wordsmith it, you can make lost business opportunities sound like lost revenue, which will definitely get their attention because there's quite a bit lost.
And it's lost revenue for everybody.
Lost revenue for the Commonwealth, exactly.
Yes, if we move that issue up into the priority, then as you see with the other priority items, we need to flesh it out a little bit more. So I appreciate that input. Thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, my personal opinion, if internet were better in rural localities, transportation issues wouldn't be as bad. Because I could work from home and not drive up and down 95, like Mr. Forehand is probably doing, and I'd be here by now. So that's one small thing, and we're going to discuss that a little bit later when we talk about towers. But I think Caroline, as my understanding, is willing to waive tower fees and speed up the process for anybody who wants to help us with broadband.
Okay.
And that was it. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Black, do you have anything?
Yeah, I just want to actually ask you a question. I mean, because I know I'm on the GWRC, and we've talked about the legislative agenda at the GWRC, and I'm concentrating on a couple of things. Do you know what is the, being down there often, what is the state, I mean, as far as with the broadband? I mean, we're lobbying the state, but what is does the state have any, I mean, does the state have any, like, plan in place for the broadband? Is there, I mean, because, or are we just saying, because, like, a lot of times the complaints from the GWRC is, we're putting this legislative agenda in front of you, and hey, we want broadband, and yeah, that's great. I mean, they're looking at it. But is there anything that's actually being done at the state level to try to help some of these localities?
That's an excellent question. There are a couple of things. Coming out of last year's General Assembly session, the Assembly put additional money in the broadband grant fund program administered by the Department of Housing and Community Development to make grants available to try to provide service in unserved and underserved areas. So that, I don't remember the exact numbers, but I believe they close to doubled it. I believe there's like $4 million in it this year. There was $2 million the year before. The other thing is the legislation that limited some of your authority relative to wireless that was hard fought last year that we opposed but did ultimately pass. The governor supported an amendment at the end that requires the providers to report annually for the next 5 years of what they have done on an annual basis to provide more service in unserved and underserved areas. So you've got a reporting requirement on the industry. And those are the two things that came out of last.
I just out of curiosity, I mean, I know you're, but how does that to be enforced? Because we can't even get Comcast to meet with us. We can't even get them to the table.
You know, it is action of the General Assembly and signed by the governor. And could industry thumb their nose at the Commonwealth? Yes, but I don't think I would want to be their representative at the General Assembly after doing that when I come back to ask for the next favor.
Mr. James, perhaps you could tell us how much Verizon lobbyists contribute to members of the General Assembly.
That information is available.
Right.
I don't have it, but you could look it up as you sit here on vpap.org.
I'm aware.
Virginia Public Access Project. And
I'm aware, but that's part of why when Mr. Black asked the naive question of what the state's doing, that's the answer. I mean, no reflection on you, but that was a nice, question from an idealist, which is something that I'd ask. But the reality is, how much is Verizon giving to the state legislature, which explains why we don't get any money or any service from Verizon? There's only 2 localities in Caroline that have access to Verizon DSL. That's Bowling Green and Port Royal. That's basically it.
Part of Lake Landor.
Yeah, part of the lakes, but they've got Comcast.
Right.
We've got Dawn. We've got.
Mr. Black, are you finished?
Yeah, I've got one other thing too.
I was going to say, I think you're answering your own questions at this point.
I just needed to say that. I feel much better now. So.
On the just
These are rounds.
going quickly on the water supply issue. The region is concerned about the safe, adequate, and affordable water. I cannot stress to you enough, and I mean, there's not many people at GWRC that are affected by this, minus, obviously I think I'm the only one really that has a substantial number of constituents who have a private water company. And I know across the state they've got about 30 or 40,000 customers total. But it is a burden for people who live under that system. There's no other way to describe it. And when you've got 9 million Virginians, I think that's what it is, and you've got 40,000, that are under this particular company, and I'm not sure how many are under American Water, but it is a major concern that needs to be. I mean, these people and some of the people in the General Assembly know about it, but something needs to be done. I mean, there's a point of no return, and we're there and we're beyond that.
I would ask, have you communicated that with your members of the Assembly?
The answer is yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes on multiple fronts.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have spent a lot of money from Caroline to actually deal with this, and I have spoken to many.
Okay, I will look at if we can bring some words relative to private systems.
Yes.
I know that you have some smaller private systems west of here, not in this immediate region, but in the area west. And so
You also have them in King George.
Yeah, there's Botetourt. I mean, there's certain counties around the state, Botetourt. But I mean, the individual, not just in the legislative platform, because I sometimes I'll be honest with you, I think if you're a delegate, and I'm not, but I don't know how much they're actually going to go through this unless it's actually brought to them in person, and we have. I mean, we have brought to this in person. We've emailed them. They've gotten emails from citizens. They've got phone calls. I mean, they've gotten all that. And anyone else that can keep on beating that message into them that, hey, look, there's 30,000, 40,000 people here that aren't particularly thrilled with what's going on. It's a monopoly. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Seeley.
Mr. James, how the heck are you?
I'm doing great.
The alternative on-site septic systems.
Yes, sir.
I know that not a sexy subject, but it is one of those topics that will impact Caroline in ways that I don't think anybody's really paid attention to. We have a number of lots that didn't perk that have these alternate sites on them with very little oversight, and the Virginia Department of Health's answer sometimes for when those fail and what can be done and what comes to the Board of Supervisors to aid them is a little distressing. I mean, we've gone as far as to allow homes to pre-treat in a system and dump that into unnamed creeks. As you move into these larger subdivisions that didn't perk and don't have wastewater, when these fail and there's no alternative site for one of these, the house becomes unlivable. Right. And there seems to be no good answer, and there's no real regulation for anybody to have to maintain these sites, or maintain these systems, and turn anything into the Virginia Department of Health, who I think should be responsible for making sure these things are taken care of. It shouldn't have to come to the Board of Supervisors to then give somebody permission to do something about it when nothing was done all through that. So I saw that as a topic in here. It's a topic this board has wrestled with in the past. It's probably a topic that's going to get more and more attention, particularly when you see, half a year's rain in 30 days, and we potentially could see, 3 months rain in 2 days. It's hard on those systems, just like it is a septic system, but those in particular because they're above ground and their ability to really handle all this is difficult. So I saw that in here. I don't know that what we're asking for in this really solves any problem.
No, what you have here is more of a policy statement. Over the last decade, the Assembly has approved lessening the role of the health department
Right.
in this process over the objection of most local governments, at least certainly the ones that have the problem, obviously your urban areas that have centralized sewer systems, it's not an issue for them. But for the Carolines, for the Culpepers, for the Fauquiers of the world, it is a problem. And that's why the statement is in there, is so we can respond if legislation is introduced to further lessen, to take a position opposed to it, or if there is, and sometimes there is, legislation to ramp up the health department's authority. The problem comes with ramping up the health department's authority is that always ends up into a budget issue, because that means they have to have more staff. And even when you can win on the policy discussion, it's almost impossible to win on the additional staff funding that they claim they need in order to do the job in the field.
Well, I will say that local governments across the state are starting to, we've had a few. I think that number, as time marches on, begins to get greater. And what we're faced with is, do you allow them to do something that you normally wouldn't because they won't have a house? And they don't have a site that they can put another system on. And it actually becomes a toxic waste cleanup to get rid of that site with a very large price tag that most aren't really aware of when they start down that path.
Or have anywhere near close to the resources to deal with when they find out what that price is.
Correct.
Yes, sir. You are spot on. The problem becomes one where you as a member of the Board of Supervisors are put in between the health department and the homeowner, trying to negotiate some kind of solution that may or may not be there. The health department comes up with you can sign a waiver where we won't make you make the repair as long as you own the property, but you'll have to make it before you sell it. And, so you solved today's problem, but you just pushed it down the road. It is a very challenging situation now. So it's just an issue that we just have to keep advocating on behalf of the local residents, and that the state health department, which has the public health responsibility, has to be there to help find solutions. And it may be that there needs to be a fund that the health department can go to help when there is one of these catastrophic failures, to help those lower moderate income households with a solution that could be a $30,000, $35,000 solution. It's not just going and pumping out the septic tank for $3,000 or $5,000.
Right. These are catastrophic, and they're major. The broadband issue that we're wrestling with, we've also tried to join PamunkeyNet to see if that will. You look at me strange, so you've not heard of PamunkeyNet. The Indians have, and Mr. Cully can give you, the Indian tribes have tapped into federal money, and this is for you as well as my fellow board members. Essex has joined the King and Queen radio system. They're erecting other towers. We are all in the proximity of a reservation and hoping to actually tap into that at some point in time. We're working on that. I don't know if some of the broadband initiatives will try to stomp that out. They're an Indian tribe. They're usually pretty autonomous, but I never know when you get down to the General Assembly who's got what ideas. I did meet with the, I don't remember the name of the organization, but it's all the folks that provide cable TV. I don't remember the name of the organization, but I did get to meet with their representative at the behest of Margaret Ranson to talk for the region to them. They were not real happy with me, but I will be there again this year to make sure that they don't inhibit our abilities to provide as a local governing body, because I don't see them being the bigger industry per se really worrying about us. And you'll see an agenda item later on where the federal government is given authority for providers of wireless to come in and just put towers wherever they want them, and they've got very strict time frames that we have to either do something or they are free and clear to do what they want with little or no fees, which I think is a huge mistake, because on the beginning of this, it sounds great, but nobody looks at the end of this. What happens when that tower is no longer needed? Is there a bond in place? We've talked about this at the Region 7 meeting last year. If they're going to do this, there's got to be language that who owns those towers and who's responsible for removing them, because you'll end up with, it's just like the old fire towers that we had all over the region. At the end of the day, we were giving them away to anybody that would take them down before they fell down. I think we have to look to the end of the process as well as the beginning of the process, but taking us and not giving us any say of where they go or whose yard or what they're next to just doesn't facilitate anything. But I'll be at the General Assembly session to meet with the good folks, again, from the cable TV industry to talk about wireless and broadband.
I would appreciate when you are doing that, if you'd let me know.
Okay.
I would love to be part of that.
I spent a good hour and a half with them in a delegate's office, with them stepping out about halfway through because they'd heard enough.
Sounds like my kind of meeting.
Thank you.
Mr. Underwood, do you have anything? Mrs. Moran? I'm going to touch just briefly on the broadband issue also. I think we definitely need to push that it is unfair and not equal and just representation to our rural students, that they cannot have the same access to education as the students in Fredericksburg or Northern Virginia. It's just plain wrong. And the other thing that I think we need to keep whispering is, if you're not going to do it, we'll make you a utility. And every time I say that word, all I hear is public-private partnerships. We'll get it done, public-private. If they're not going to play nice together, let's declare them a utility and make them do it. Seemed to work pretty well with the electric companies. So that's my stance on that. On the water, it's always an issue. We shouldn't have to fight for our citizens to have good, healthy, and affordable water. And there was one other thing that I had marked, which I can't find right now. So I'll catch you with it at George Washington Regional Commission when I come up with it.
Or you can just give me a call.
Give you a ring. So, yep.
Madam
So
Chair,
just keep on with them.
Could I
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
answer a question that I gave
And I'll look for my
Mr. James?
notes.
Just so you'll know, Verizon itself donated $5.5 million, and Verizon Communications, which is their wireless, donated $2 million, and Comcast donated $2.5 million. Interesting how monopolies donate money to the General Assembly.
I think that kind of says it all. I don't think if you added up all of those of us who do this kind of work for local government, I don't think we come anywhere near close to that.
I just thought the next time somebody asked you, you'd have that for you.
Oh, yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Eldon? No? Mr. James, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Am I going to see you on Monday? Are you going to be at that meeting? Linda's gone.
She's
snuck
left
out.
already. I got up to speak and she took off. Okay. Yes, my plan is to be there. I believe I'm on the agenda.
Okay.
And if you have any other thoughts or comments, feel free to email them to me or give me a call. We'll be working through draft 2 and to get that to everybody in advance of the VACO meeting in November. And it's a great opportunity to be with you all again tonight, and thank you for all the very valuable input. Got a lot of good notes. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, that takes us down to appointments. The Building Code Board of Appeals appointments. Kenneth Progue has said he will stay on. He said Kevin doesn't work very hard, so he could do it again. And Madison? piece of just. All right, so
If
I
Mr.
would,
Napier is interested in continuing, then I would fully support that.
so we have a nomination for David Napier and Kenneth Pogue for the Building Code Board of Appeals. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. And we thank them for being willing to continue their service there. Which takes us to the consent agenda. And gentlemen, I've noticed in the past few meetings, we don't want to pull things, but we want to ask a question or discuss. I think it's going to be easier and more organized if you have, even if it's just a question, let's just pull it, get the other ones out of the way, and then we can come back and we can ask whatever questions and vote on them separately. I think it'd be easier for Pam taking notes and easier for the public to follow. So, does anyone have anything they would like to pull from the consent agenda? And remember, we also added an I, which is the consent for the local emergency in the county. Does anybody have anything they want to pull?
Madam Chairman, could item B, please?
And I am going to pull H, simply because I want to make a statement there. Anything else? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve consent agenda A, C, D, E, F, G, and I?
So moved.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. B. Who pulled B?
I did, Madam Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Underwood.
Yeah, Madam Chairman, these are funds that were from 2008, 17, 18, that we're moving to the 18, 19 budget is the request, is that correct?
That is correct.
So that means we did not spend the money in 17, 18, therefore, does that mean our budget grows by the $1.78 million?
It would,
Because we didn't spend it, then we would have a surplus of 1.7. So was there a need for it to be spent, or did we just somehow?
most of the things we just didn't, a lot of them we just didn't get to.
We didn't get to? I find that troubling if we budgeted $2 million worth of work to be done or services to be added, and we didn't get to it over the course of the year. I'm just looking. We were at the with the volunteer fire department, and they were complaining about needing repairs, and I see that in 2017-18 there's money for repairs that wasn't spent. We're talking about another vehicle, $43,000, that I'm sure that we're saying that our equipment is old and we didn't spend the money then. So I'm having a hard time understanding why it was not spent.
The station repairs, the chief would have to speak to those items. You will see that
Yeah.
a bulk of the money is in utilities, and you know, a fair amount of that was the Rappahannock withdrawal permit.
Yeah, that was about $300,000. Yeah, I believe. Yeah, but that's a far cry from 1.7, 1.8 actually. $1,788,000.
Well, part of it's the accounting system is $500,000. We've been sort of fiddling with $500,000 of that's rolled. So we've been working on it. We just didn't finish it. So we had the bid on the street, and we've interviewed firms. We're working on the contract negotiations now. The lighting system, you know, that's broken. We've been working on that and meeting with contractors for 2 years. So I mean, some things, it's not that we never worked on them at all. We just
No, I'm not
just
suggesting
didn't
that, Mr.
finish
Cullen.
them.
I'm not suggesting that we didn't work on them. I'm just saying, for me sitting here, it's just a little troubling. That's all. Just from my perspective.
Mr. Cully, could some of these also be that the bills did not come in until after the accounting cutoff, or?
No, I don't.
We should accrue money for that. That's a accrual issue. The bill, waiting for the bill, we would have accrued money to pay the bill.
Yeah, that's
That has
different.
nothing to do with this.
The chief can answer
funds
some of
here.
these questions if you would, on the chief's things.
What's that? Right. I'm just looking at the whole package.
Mr. Underwood, I can answer the 4x4 vehicle. It's because it came after July 1. You bought it in the previous fiscal year, but if it doesn't come until after July 1, the money has to be moved in the new fiscal year to pay for it.
Okay.
And then the volunteer station repairs, that's at Ladysmith Fire. We did not get to that project. Finding a contractor capable of doing the work was the problem.
Chief,
So-
is that the roof?
That's the inside metal and inside the station. Yes, sir.
So what you're saying, Mr. Underwood, is our final budget didn't really reflect this 1.7, which means we actually saved more money because we spent less. But now Mr. Cully's saying we still have to do these things, so this year's budget will actually look like it's got more in it. That's the point.
But that happened to us in previous years. We've rolled $1 million, $1.2 million before. I mean, it just,
And $1.1 million is the accounting system and water issues.
correct. The big chunk was ongoing projects, and we're working on both of those. They just cross in budget line.
Any other questions on item B?
Madam Chairman, motion to approve item, consent agenda item B, please.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Okay. I pulled H simply to let you all know that the reason I pulled it was I called the chief and I asked if we could get a fence that would match the color of the building so it would blend in and look nicer, in my opinion. And he did get me a price on that, and to go from white vinyl on that fence to beige or bone, whatever that color is that the building is almost another $2,000. So I think we're going to go with white. We're going to approve this, but we may have to pull out those landscape ideas and plant some greeneries to contrast a little bit. That is a building that, as you're going past planning and down that road, it's going to be very visible, so we want it to look nice. But we did research that in case anybody says to you, why didn't you match the building? So,
Madam Chair?
yes.
I guess my question is I saw we're going to put Connex boxes and trailers behind it, which are probably taller than 6 feet. So we're really going to see stuff above that.
When were we talking about connexes and trailers? Was it? Yes. We're not bringing more. Okay. All right.
So you're correct, Mr. Seeley. The Connex is probably 8 feet tall. A few trailers we may have might be 7 to 8 feet. But we're not bringing anything additional to the site that we don't already own. We're just trying to hide what we do have from the public view. There is a potential to go to 8-foot vinyl. Price goes up about $4,000. For me, I thought the 6-foot would give enough of a screen that wouldn't be visible.
Leland cypress trees.
Anything would be good.
I don't think you'll match the trees. The leaves.
Beige was, yeah, but any color is more expensive. Yeah. Yeah, I asked. Yep, exactly.
Is Kevin volunteering to paint the fence?
He volunteered to do the metal at Ladysmith, so we're going to take him up on that. Oh, I misinterpreted.
I just wanted to make sure, because we're putting up a lot of fence, and I didn't know if that meant we were adding a lot more items behind it, was my concern.
We're making sure, Mr. Sealer, there's enough room that someone can drive the trailer around and turn around and come out.
But can you still, So isn't there another overhead door on the other side of that building?
No, sir, just one overhead door.
So just the one overhead door on this side, on the far side?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And we do have a gate somewhere in case we need to get someone in.
On the back side of that
Back
fence
side.
on that property, so Mr. Schiebel can get to the rest of the dirt pile that's back there when he needs to.
All right, thank you. In this case, I move that we accept item number H on the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Thank you, gentlemen. All right. We will take a 15-minute break. We will reconvene at 7:30. There's glare on that clock. I can't see it. And we will meet you all back here at 7:30 for public comment. Thank you. All right, we are back. Man, the audience sort of shrunk down. Okay. So, we are back and ready for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak at this time we have no public hearings, on any topic? Hello, Sheriff Lippa. Thank you for the video.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to talk to about, Madam Chair. First of all, I want to thank the community, especially for National Night Out, for making our lip sync challenge a true success. I thank those board members that were able to get into the video, and that was the main thing I want to do. Of course, I want to also thank the chief, where we had fire and rescue in there, along with Mr. Cully and Mr. Mahoney. So we caught as many people as we could.
We should have brought it and played it on the big screen. I haven't seen it on anything other than my little phone yet.
But thank you all again.
Thank you for doing that, Sheriff. We'll see what King George comes up with.
When you mentioned King George, I just thought I'd let you know I called Sheriff Dempsey about 30 minutes after it hit. He said, well, you're going to see me with the white flag. And I said, okay. And then his daughter said I called him out nationally, so I do expect something from King George.
All right.
Good evening to the board.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, my name is Craig Beasley, Dr. Craig Beasley. I represent the Caroline County Sunday School Union. And tonight I present myself on behalf of the Caroline County Sunday School Union, that the Sunday School Union be exempt from any administrative waivers, fees that might come for using this facility during our annual meetings. Usually it's about 3 meetings a year, no more than 4. So we would like to have a waiver for any administrative costs for using this building.
Madam Chair, I thought that was part of the process, and it may have come before you, but I'm not sure you understand, Mr. Beasley, but this building belonged to the Sunday School Union at one
That's
time.
correct.
And I thought we'd said that the Sunday School Union was exempt from any fees except for maybe the custodial fees.
And you're right, that was before my time, that the policies were set for that, so can we take it under consideration
But
and
if you need to
research
make a
it?
motion, I'm not sure Mr. Schiebel put that in his procedures, but that was part of the original agreement. So I'll make a motion that we exempt the Caroline County Sunday School Union from fees.
So, well, we can't make a motion during public
Oh,
comment.
okay, I'm sorry,
but,
I will wait.
About how many people, you'll have to fill me in on what the union actually, how many people are we looking at, what size room, that type of thing?
Basically, we request the auditorium here. We have it on an average maybe about 160 people or less that's in attendance. The initiative is working with the youth in building their oratorial skills and working with them on meta leadership.
And for how long a period of time?
We usually meet maybe 2 hours every 5th Saturday in the year. So it constitutes about 4 meetings a year.
Oh, it's this Saturday, not this Sunday anymore?
No, sir, we moved to Saturday.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sorry to just don't know what the group is about, so I needed to educate myself there. Yes. Thank you very much. And can you also tell me before you leave about what type of programs you're doing? You do?
Yes, ma'am. Basically what we're doing is We designed programs that way the kids would come and do oral presentations. We give them a subject out of the Bible. Like this, on the 29th of September, we will have a meeting where they will talk about pulling off corruption, putting on incorruption. So each church, member church, was about 14 member churches, will have a representative from the youth department that will come and give anywhere from 5 to 7 minute speech. So therefore, they're building their oratory skills. And we also have different workshops that work on meta leadership, on how to lead, not only in the church, but in the communities, and how to plan effective leadership.
Okay, that sounds great. It'd be nice to know when they're coming so we could, if any of us can attend, would know you were having it. So.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And my apologies, gentlemen, for asking questions during public comment, but I didn't know.
Any public comment?
Any other public comments this time? Any other public comments? Hearing none, public comments are closed.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may address the last speaker, the Sunday School Union, historically, and surprisingly, that is before my time, they were the group of, at that time, I believe it was 26 African-American churches in the county. Mm-hmm. And during the time of segregation, they created schools for the African-American students of the county. They built this building and the one behind us. And when the schools combined in 1969, I believe this building and that building were purchased for a fee of $1. And considering that, when the county went to the, when the county renovated this building and started using it as a community center, they had historically been given no fees. So that's historically their process.
For it.
And I guess since they gave the building for $1 and the county renovated it, we didn't charge them. I neglected to add that to make sure that was in the process when Mr. Sheba was doing his notes. But if I may now, may I make a motion to have Mr. Sheba update that?
That's fine. Can we put it on our next meeting's agenda?
Our next meeting is,
Can we, let me ask if can we as a board just waive their next fee as an individual board member, and then we'll work this out in the process, get the process set so that it's in writing and it's done, because I think that would be easier.
especially their next meeting would be the 29th, which is the 5th Saturday. So we'd meet the 25th, but we can waive their meeting now.
Right. I would make a motion, we waive their meeting fee for the 29th, and we make the appropriate changes to the policy for building rental.
I have a motion. I have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Thomas did. All right. So you're okay set for your next meeting when we get all our paperwork and research done. Thank you.
Now I know why I missed it, because I thought it was Sunday.
All right. So that brings us to unfinished business. We are on topic number 4, which is proposed pay increases for constitutional officers. Mr. Coley.
At your last meeting, it did come up from Major Mosier why we didn't look at exactly what the Springstead study had looked at for employees, which was taking years of service into effect. So I did create a new spreadsheet which basically looks at years of service, and the big sheet with all the numbers on it, and the other sheet with a lot of numbers on it basically show those calculations. But if you want, you can look for a clearer in the staff memo. But basically, for the calculations, I took years of service times half a percent a year. So for the sheriff, it's 14 years of service at a 0.5%, and that is calculated on his comp board salary of $93,000, not his current salary. And that's what was also done for the Springstead study, is everybody was put at a base salary scale at the floor, not what their current salary was, and then that percentage was put on that on the Springstead. So it's equal to that. And then you add back in their current supplement, and for the sheriff, the $28,000. So if you look specifically at that in the table, his current salary with all his supplements for animal control and past supplements is $134,855. If you go to column B in the table, not in the spreadsheets, but just in the board memo, you'd see that's $141,461. Well, that's for the 0.5% a year for the years of service on his comp board salary, not his $134. So it's not times $134, it's actually times $93,946. Then you add back in the other things, and you get to the $141. If you go to column C, that's what we had originally recommended, which was 5% on his comp board salary, and then add back in the other things. And so you can see the main difference in either 5% across the board on comp board salary in C, or 0.5% for years of service. Somebody like the treasurer who's been here 26 years, it's a much larger raise for them. And then the folks, commissioner, Commonwealth attorney, clerk, they're all on a 2-year. Since they've been elected, it's a lot less than the 5% across the board on their salary. So it just kind of looks at it a different way and rewards years of service. So think of it as column A is their current salaries, column B is 0.5% for years of service on the comp board salary, and then add back in their supplements. And C is what I recommended last month, is basically 5% on their comp board salary. So it's just maybe a fair way of looking at it. Major Mosher brought that up last time when we discussed this. So that's really the only change. The spreadsheets are just backup information if you want to run through and figure out where the calculations came from. Those give you those things. And that's really all we have to add on this matter.
All right. Discussion? Levy? Yeah. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Madam Chairman. I just kind of got stuck on paragraph 3. It says, although the results of the study do not demonstrate the need for salary adjustment for all 5 of the constitutional officers, staff continues to recommend that all constitutional officers receive a 5% increase.
That was last month. The update starts. That was last month's staff memo. We just updated it with the update at the bottom. So I don't think we're really recommending anything now. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Mr. Cully. I should read. I just stopped right there. I said, well, you won't get my support. So let me do what I'm supposed to do. Let me read it all, and I'll come back, Madam Chair, if you don't mind.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
One of the concerns I have is we are now in September. We were going to start a new budget process in a couple of months. I think if we're going to factor this in, we should do it in the new budget, if we're even going to consider it.
Mr. Black?
I'm a firm believer in the column B of the 0.5%. I like that new proposal. To me, that's fair because your years of service do play have an effect, and it rewards people who are here longer. And the total cost is, if you add everything up, is not hugely substantial considering, what we did for the employees. I mean, we gave them, and that was $1 million something. So this is considerably less. And, I know when you run for an election, you understand what the salary is, but at the same time, there's, just because you decide to be the treasurer or Commonwealth attorney or clerk of the court, whoever, doesn't mean you don't deserve a COLA as well. So I'm in favor of what staff came up with column B.
Mr. Thomas, any comments?
Well, I'm a numbers guy, and I'm stuck on the spreadsheet, but it would seem like from the spreadsheet, what you're saying is the one particular salary should go down $2,000. Is that what you're saying, Mr. Cullen? It's a red 2023.
No, that column still exists from that Caroline to average, which is averaged across all those, and that was still where we were to the average of all the comp board salaries, which included Hanover and Spotsy, which were much higher, just from Caroline to the average. Just
So you're just saying that particular salary is $2,000 more than the average, and not it should be reduced $2,000.
no, the average was 95,969. It's not anything we could reduce. That's the comp board salary,
Yeah.
and that's only. That doesn't mean it should be reduced. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying our salary to the average of the comp board salaries that we studied is 2,000 lower.
Okay.
Not recommending there. That's just
okay.
The spreadsheet from before is this big giant one on the fold out. It's got Dinwiddie, Hanover, King. That's where that Caroline to average just looked at what all the comp board salaries were, or for that instance, what all of the total salaries were, and that's just where that Caroline to average came out. And I was still using that column in my new spreadsheet to come up with what the totals were down below it, so that's why it's sort of still there.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I was comparing spreadsheet to spreadsheet, and luckily I can go back and forth with the computer. But,
right.
Okay, thank you.
My concern with just doing a flat across for everyone is that in the study where we're comparing to other localities, our commissioner of revenue and our Commonwealth attorney, and a little bit also toward our clerk of the circuit court, their average overall compared to, no, I take out Spotsylvania because we don't have near that many people, but
Hanover.
say to King George or Hanover is further off balance-wise than the sheriffs or the treasurers. And if we do just across the board, we're not bringing them up to where they should have been even before to get them sort of in line if we're looking at securing them to run again and stay. So that is my concern with doing something straight across the board, is I'm looking at the figures, and I don't think that's going to balance it quite right. And I have no problem with the idea of the budget, rolling this into the next budget session so that it's all whatever we decide, and giving us more time to look at this to try to figure out exactly what we want to do. I think everybody deserves something for doing their job, but if we know we have some employees that are underpaid, we need to get them, I think, up to scale. They're doing a decent job, and I think all our employees work real hard for us, at least all the ones that I know.
Madam Chairman, what was the function or purpose of the study?
I had recommended a number of months ago, due to the fact that we had done the compensation study for all the other employees, and that we had gotten a request from the registrar, the electoral board, to adjust the registrar's salary. I had come forward with a recommendation that these constitutional officers be given a 5% adjustment. From that, then we were asked to study all the counties that had been done in the Springstead study to figure out where our constitutional officers were, which is what we brought you back last month. Here are the counties that we studied, and we created this spreadsheet, which was a little bit confusing, and I'm sorry, but it's a lot of numbers. And so after that, we were asked to look at it again, and Major Mosier had said, why didn't we look at the 0.5% a year thing? And I'm going, well, yeah, we really didn't, and I'll put that in a spreadsheet. So that's what we brought back additional this time is, if you looked at it exactly like the Springstead, years of service, 0.5% on their base comp board pay, that's what column B represents, which is, the fairest way of looking at it in an apples to apples with the Springstead study, which we did last summer and adopted last September.
So are you saying that the pay study was to determine if constitutional officers were paid fairly based on the Springstead classification?
Based on what the other counties were paying their constitutional officers that we studied with it, correct. We used the exact same counties.
So that was the purpose.
Correct. But that was asked of us by the board. Our original recommendation was the 5%, because we didn't do the study.
Okay.
But since then, we've done another look at it, just to look at it straight across the board. What would their years of service be on their base pay?
Just
Yeah, 0.5% a year. Yeah, not their total. Worked off of the base pay, which you can find on the spreadsheet. Some of them are in yellow, but it's comp period board salary. That's their base pay set by the state, and that's based on population and based on whether their offices are certified or not. So you can be a certified law enforcement officer. You can be a 1 or 2, 3 level certification in the commissioner. You can treasurer's office can be certified. So it's whether their offices meet that, then the state bumps up their salary even more.
Let me ask you this. So if we do years of service, next election, that's the salary for the new sheriff, even though they won't have 14 years of service? That would be the new base salary would be one?
No, the new base salary for a new, if for instance, the sheriff didn't run, would be whatever the comp board set for a certified sheriff. So right now it would be 93,946. And then currently the 28,000 is going for animal control. But the 12,000 that's in there in supplement, that's what's been given in raises over the years. That would go away. We did that with the Commissioner of Revenue. When the Commissioner of Revenue was hired, his salary was put in at the base pay, and just that little bit of supplement. He wasn't put in at what the previous Commissioner of Revenue was making, and the clerk of the court was the same way. They weren't brought in with the supplements that had been earned by the previous. So their base pay is always whatever the comp board sets.
But that base pay in this particular one, for like if you look at the Commissioner of Revenue, is much lower than what the average is.
Right, but the average has got those 2 big counties maxed in.
Well, but it's like part of this. You're using the Springstead study formula, right?
No. The comp board salary is set by the state. So every one of those.
I'm looking at. I understand that, but if you look at the Commissioner of Revenue, Caroline to average.
Right. Yeah, the big one is the big one behind it.
You have the electronic spreadsheet with you, Mr.
Yeah,
Cullen?
no.
You don't have the electronic spreadsheet?
No, but if you look, the Caroline salary of 77,193 is equal to King George's 77,193 as well.
Mr. Cullen, may I ask?
And those are set by the comp board.
The comp board salary apparently does not take years of experience in. It must go by
No, it goes by population. Correct, population.
Okay.
And they adjust that every time the General Assembly gives them some money to make adjustments to comp board salaries.
So even if their population is the same, but they have more years' experience, they don't adjust it. That's up to the localities.
Correct.
All right. Gotcha.
That was the hardest part of the study, was trying to figure out what these people's base comp board salary was. Because it's a document on the internet, but if you don't know what certification level they are, and they can't explain it to you, you can't figure out where their base pay is.
Right,
We knew what their total pay was from the county, but we had to back our way into calculating all their other pay.
But we're not increasing the base pay because that's set by the state.
Correct. This is supplement.
Doing our local supplement.
Local supplement, correct.
Right, and that's why I asked the question, what was the function of the study and what were we trying to accomplish? If it was trying to get to a level playing field for all 5 constitutional officers, then I think you have to look at it one way. If we look at it as merit, and so the question is, we have a sheriff who has, I don't want to say too many years of experience. I don't want to go over the century marks too many, but has all the years of experience. Does he deserve compensation for those years of service? So it depends on what we were trying to accomplish here. And I think Mr. Black says absolutely we should compensate our folks for years of service, for sticking it out and being reelected. On the other hand, we have a new Commissioner of Revenue who falls in with very little experience. So, I mean, I just want to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples. If our goal is to reward our sheriff and the other persons in those 5 positions for being there long-term, then they should be rewarded, and we shouldn't look at anything else.
But Mr. Underwood, I think you have 2 separate issues here.
I agree.
And I think you need to work on them. To me, you've got to work on them both, because if the Springstead study is saying that the commission revenue is underpaid using the same formula that we use for all employees, if that employee is underpaid by whatever this is saying he's underpaid by, well, to me, that's one issue. Then you turn around and you say, look, I mean, I would imagine in the next year's budget and the budget after that, Mr. Cully is going to recommend COLAs for employees that 1%, 2%. So then that's also another issue. So I think you can't say, all right, we're just going to raise the commissioner revenue and then not going to do COLAs for the others. I mean, I think you have to do both.
I don't think I said that. I think you went around Robin Hood's barn to get there. I definitely didn't say that. What
I'm saying is I think you have to do both.
No. Again, yes, sir. I'll yield.
We recommended just 5%. It was clean, simple, 5%. The board, I don't know if it was Mr. Forehand, somebody on the board said, well, why don't we look at some data from these other jurisdictions to see do they need 5% or not? That's what created this giant spreadsheet. We did it first, and you approved it for the registrar because it showed the registrar was about 5% low. And that was approved. It just took us longer to get the data for this. When we brought it back, what it showed is we were fairly in line with some positions. Some were a little bit low, but fairly in line. And this was last month. You weren't present. And I said, well, I'm still recommending for just ease, 5%. But the board said, well, look at this other method. So I think we've changed our focus from just the 5% across the board as to, okay, this is what we did for the actual other employees. We looked at years of service. We put them at the base salary, the starting salary of that new grade. Our grade for these positions are what the comp board says we should pay them based on population, not years of service. So we took that, multiplied it by their years of service, came up with that number, added up their other things that they already were getting, and that's where we came up with column B as basically our new recommendation. I think it is the fairest way of then just everybody gets 5%, because it does take in years of service. And so it's not going to bring up those that have only been here a couple of years to the average of everybody else in the region, but you're not going to get to that average anyway. That was just looking at those counties. And when you know you've got Hanover and you've got Spotsy, those averages get skewed because the state already is putting their base pay up higher, plus then their supplements are higher. The average is way greater.
However, in King, say the commissioner revenue, in King George, which is comparable to us, 2 years experience, they're giving no supplement.
Correct.
And the thing is the same. We're giving $2,500, but you look over at, I would say Orange is fairly similar also, and they're doing almost $6,000 in supplement, which, it's
that's what I'm saying.
It's funny how
every county does
throws
this, right?
over things.
They just do.
But the average is really in the negative. Is really high on those 2 positions, particularly, and a little bit on the clerk. I'd like to be a little bit more competitive, but Mr. Forehand.
A couple things. One, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kelly, but the local supplement does account for pay increases that have occurred in the past. So there is some.
That's where that
already some credit for tenure.
Yeah, that's where that's built in.
Okay, and comparing these and the Springstead study isn't exactly apples to apples because our employee, our utilities worker has portability. They can quit today and be working in Hanover tomorrow.
That happen.
That's not the case for these. It's really difficult to even terminate one of these employees per se. That's not the right term. So they're basically locked in. They're doing a great job, great. If they're not doing a great job, we're still stuck. So there's really no portability which is what we were trying to address primarily with the Springstead study, is because we had people leaving, easily leaving and getting employed the following week. So I'm just saying this isn't the same scenario. I'm not saying something doesn't have to be done, but there's a couple variances that it's not exactly the same circumstance what we're looking at. So I don't have a strong opinion either way, whether we go A, B, or C, honestly. But
Well, A is current, right?
correct.
It's still on the table.
Yeah.
A is still on the table.
Just point that out, that was current.
Well, I think we should at least do something, or try to do something for now. So I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to adopt column B.
It doesn't fix the problem.
I've got a motion if anyone wants to second it.
Do I have a second to the motion? Hearing no second, motion dies. Continued discussion or another motion?
I make a motion that we table this and take this up during budget, because I think it's going to take more than what the discussion we're going to have tonight, because there's a lot of varying opinions. And I do agree that the Commissioner of the Revenue, the attorney, the Commonwealth's attorney, and the clerk of the court, we have to do something different than the other two long-term employees, because if you do column B, you really do very little for the three lowest paid. So I think we need to actually look at this in budget, and I'll make a motion that we move this to the budget work sessions and try to work it out during that process.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. Discussion? Mr. Cully, when do we start this? How far back would that put raises? If we wait
Well,
for
they're already
budget
2 years.
decision?
They're 2 years back since they had a raise.
I know, but if we wait to discuss this during budget season, when would it start?
July 1, 19.
So we'll put them back.
And put them 3 before they got it. Be 3 years.
Did you say, when did you say the last comp board raise was? You said it was 3 years ago, or?
Well, 2 was the last time we gave a COLA.
Okay.
So there's a motion and a second.
To wait until budget season. So that's what we're discussing now. We have a motion on the floor. Any other questions on that motion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Nay. Mr. Thomas?
The motion was to put it on the budget session.
Right.
That's what I-
Mr. Black?
I'm going to go nay, I'm sorry.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay?
Mr. Forehand?
Aye.
And I want to say nay. Yes,
Can I
Mr.
make a
Underwood.
proposal?
Yes.
Well, I haven't finished writing.
Since we're trying to, since we're trying to reward and show appreciation to these 5 constitutional officers, would it be amenable to the board to give some type of straight across the board pay at this point, and then come back at board session, whether it's $3,000 or $4,000 for this year, and then come back and fix this? That way they would all receive the same amount during this time.
Don't call it a bonus.
No, I won't call it, let's call it a stipend or some type of incentive to all 5 people receiving the same amount, and then deal with the rest of the process during the budget session.
All right, I have
If
a
I make a
motion.
motion,
I don't think that was the spirit of what we were trying to do here, because some would deserve more than others. Now, what I thought we were going to do was go through the budget process, and if it passed, maybe make it retroactive, but, that's why-
but knowing
that's why I
that, but
voted
knowing that
retroactive
they haven't had any type of compensation in terms of COLA or anything for 2 years, I think this would demonstrate good faith by us, saying that we're trying to do what's right and show appreciation. while we can't fix it right now based on, because I want to get back to the purpose, but I do believe that if we're going to treat people fairly, then we treat all people fairly. And I think that's the fairest way to do that, is to give everyone the same amount now, and then come back and resolve this in a budgetary process.
May I ask the Commonwealth's attorney, who occasionally serves as the parliamentarian, excuse me, the county attorney. Well, I was looking at Commonwealth's attorney in front of me. A motion that fails can be brought back again at our next meeting by a motion to reconsider. Well, there is no prevailing side in that, and that was my question. So either side could bring that motion back?
I'm not sure either
I'm not
side
sure.
can.
With Robert's rules, I'm not exactly sure. It's conceivable, but you can also vote to allow that if a majority of the board wants to do that, they can vote to do that. You don't have to follow Robert's rules.
Maybe, Madam Chair, we meet again in 2 weeks. Maybe you can have some discussions with board members individually and come up to a conclusion at our next meeting. If the board would make a motion to take it up again.
If you make a motion, I'll second.
I'm asking if the...
Wait, we already have a motion on the...
No, that motion...
We don't have a motion.
Oh, right.
Just a suggestion.
It was a suggestion, it wasn't a motion.
Can we, because I think there's still...
Mr. Underwood, you made a suggestion. Do you want to go any place with that suggestion, or are we back in discussion?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'd like to, if we could discuss, I just think that, I think in the spirit of what we're trying to do, I would like to see those folks shown the appreciation by the board. And I still think if we could work on a number tonight to say that we would be willing to increase their pay by X number of dollars across the board until we finish the salaries, finish our discussion during budget process. I think that would be the fair thing to do. I would like to see something, but I just don't know the amount. I'm going to need a little help, but so I can, if you give me just a second, I can.
All right.
If you give me just 30 seconds.
All right, I'll give you a moment. I think what Mr. Underwood is saying is he would like us to consider doing some type of an increase tonight, maybe not the full thing, until we get into budget discussion, and then decide how we want to balance it out in the budget. But he needs a moment to decide how he wants to voice his motion. Any other discussion while he's having some time?
Madam Chair, you could also do a percentage as opposed to a set amount across the board.
3%. Right, but that's,
if you
I'm giving you 5.
if you wanted to reward the
Period,
over.
because one is more lower paid than the other, so.
Why don't we just go with C? B failed, so
Yeah, proceed.
why don't we just go with C?
Why don't we just let you come up with an answer in 2 weeks?
All right. You want to table it
I'm gonna-
to our next meeting?
Yeah, if we can do that. Go ahead and make the motion.
I'll make a motion, we table this and readdress it on the 25th.
Second.
I have a motion and a
And we come
second
up
to
with a number.
table it to our next meeting in 2 weeks so that we can have time to think about exactly how best to address it, bookkeeping-wise and fairness. Do I have a second?
Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Thomas seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
Call for
Mr. Thomas.
division, Madam Chairman. I voted aye.
Mr. Black?
Nay.
Mr. Seeley?
Aye.
Mr. Underwood?
Nay.
Mr. Forehand? And I voted aye. Just 2 weeks, guys, hold on. All right. Okay. All right. That takes us to number 5, under new business, leasing. You are up.
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My colleague Alex Hawk is handing out books. We can do it without it. I think we're just going to be pretty quick. It's up to you.
Man.
Yeah, we'll just go off. We're going to go off the books rather than do this overhead. This one's pretty straightforward. We were asked to look at financing for various pieces of equipment, including ERP accounting software, the heavy squad fire, school bus, 9 sheriff vehicles, ambulance, and a pickup truck. We're looking to amortize them over different years. So what we've done is we asked the lenders to give us interest rates for each of those 3 different segments, 4 years, 10 years, and 15 years. The total estimated cost is $2 million. That includes cost of issuance. We think the number is going to be lower than that once we get everything calculated. So it should be in the $1.9 million plus range. On page 2, we sent the proposals out on the 20th of August, got them back on September 4, received 11 proposals. You'll see the various banks that we got them back from. The details are in the back. Because we had so many different options, you can't really compare them all on one page. It would have been just a ton of different interest rates. So the details are in the back. But the top proposal actually came from, again, Union Bank was very competitive. The 4-year rate, 10-year rate, and 15-year rate of 297, 317, and 327 were very competitive. They didn't have the lowest 4-year rate or the lowest 10-year rate, but they had the lowest 15-year rate. We only got 2 banks that gave us a 15-year rate. A number of the banks would not let us amortize the software over 15 years, and that's the one item we wanted to spread out the longest. As you know, the software we have now has been around for a long, long, long time.
I was going to say, have they seen how long we've been using what we have?
I know, and that's just, they have their own internal lending standards, and so with that, some were doing 10, some were doing 4, and obviously we want to spread this out. I will tell you, we did go and look at the lowest 4-year rate, lowest 10-year rate, assuming that we went to 3 different banks. And the dollars were so little that the cost of issuance would have been bumped up by virtue of having to do additional documents for 2 more banks. That basically wouldn't have made sense. So our recommendation is to move forward with the Union Bank doing basically one financing with them at the 4 different rates. They've got there's prepayment is any time without penalty. Bank closing costs are just $3,500 for their counsel. Looking to close by September the 20th. Page 4, you can see the different tranches and how we laid out the debt service. But essentially what it does is it gives us the lowest 15-year rate. The other bank was 29 basis points higher. So we got a really good aggressive bid on the 15-year piece. That interest rate will be fixed to final maturity, so there's no resets. Again, prepayable at any time. Closing costs are lower. And then in terms of, that'll keep us with one single lender and keep those closing costs down. So what we're asking tonight is there's a resolution in front of you to allow us to do a not to exceed $2 million and a not to exceed interest rate of the highest rate there of the 15-year rate. And then we will look to close by the 20th. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
And this is a rate that can't be increased or decreased.
Exactly.
It
is set as long as we close by the given time. It does not change. Oh, you're talking about the tax rate issue.
Yes.
That's a good question. Alex, you remember what they said in there in terms of? Yeah. Take a look at that. See what it says. Good question.
I mean, it's not going to be a gigantic number. It's just more of a curiosity. See if our debt service will go up or down if they do another big tax change, which has now been proposed.
Assuming, I was going to say, assuming they lower taxes even lower, which I can't now sit here and tell you that sounds crazy because it sounded crazy at the time.
Yep.
It's always possible at this point. I was thinking the other, I was just thinking about in market because actually we've actually seen 5 basis point increase in our yield curve in just the last 3 days, just based on information, unemployment on Friday, and then some other information came out today. So we already are starting to see those rates jump up. And the one reason we wanted to get this done was the Fed is expected to raise rates again 2 weeks from tomorrow, especially based on the unemployment numbers that came out on Friday. So we expect this would be even higher because, again, we're looking at the shorter end of the yield curve, especially the 4-year piece.
Anything else we need to throw in here to get this rate?
I have a question for Mr. Cohen.
There's no yield maintenance. There is no yield maintenance in here, which is the question you're asking. Yield maintenance would be if the tax rate changed that they'd bump it up. So that is not included in their proposal. Good question.
Question, Mr. Thomas.
Question for Mr. Cully. You have included in this just the software cost, right?
Yeah, the 550. The 550.
Right. Well, you didn't have to tell me because now a vendor knows. But have you included the maintenance cost of the software, which is probably years 2 through 10?
We're going to have to pay that.
Isn't that something you could finance?
We can't finance maintenance cost.
Oh, yeah.
I wasn't planning on it, but yeah. We're paying maintenance now. It'll be more than what we're currently paying, but we pay, to our current vendor maintenance yearly. So we just figured we just have to eat the additional maintenance cost.
All right. If I can help you when you do that, because there are some software vendors who offer a fixed maintenance cost over a period of time, and if you wrap that into your purchase price, you have one number for a fixed amount of time.
Yeah, locked in for a number of years. Right, I understand.
Otherwise, I can guarantee your maintenance is going to go up every year.
Correct.
After the first year. So there are savings.
I see what you're saying. You want to bundle it and buy 8 years worth of maintenance.
We used to offer
right. I know.
Long-term maintenance package, which you're basically paying up front, but you fix your maintenance cost. So it gives you one number forever or for 10 or 15 years. And it saves you money, and the vendor gets money up front, which they feel better about. So.
But then you would need to up this resolution.
Yeah, I would suspect that you couldn't do it unless it was up front because you've got the 36-month spin down for the IRS code
right. You have to
purposes. Right. But if you do like you're saying, which is bundle it and it's an upfront cost.
If I take the maintenance cost for years 2 through 10, 9 years worth of maintenance.
As long as you're spending it now, we should be fine.
Roll that into this financing and tell the vendor I'm going to guarantee this payment. The vendor will say, oh, really? I have extra money now?
Right. No, I agree with you.
So to Mr. Colley's point, we would want to increase the authorized amount.
But he needs to know.
I don't have an idea.
He needs to know what the vendor will charge for maintenance in year 2. And
we know that. We don't have it with us today. I mean, we don't. That's a big contract book. But
have they offered a bundled 10-year maintenance?
No, because we didn't ask them to.
Right.
We could. I mean, we've been offered that by Motorola before, so we could get that.
Because then you're actually freezing your maintenance costs. That's the key to them, or to us. The key to them is you're paying that maintenance up front starting day 1.
I just don't know how much they would discount it. I know if you multiply that out times 10, 9 times maintenance, where that number is. So I just don't know what the discount would be. And it should be fairly significant for buying and paying for it up front.
Okay. But you can find that out before they have to have their thing in by the 20th.
Yeah, but you're going to have to go up.
We just need a number to know.
You're going to have to go up. You're going to have to go up,
Can you give us an educated guess on how to change
this?
That's where my problem is, but we got to authorize a number that's significantly higher than what you've got.
Give me a second.
Yeah, it would be. I think the number is way over $60,000 a year. Yeah. So 9 times. Yeah. I don't know if they'll lend you on that.
our warrant package, how much you pay? Maintenance contract, is it in the warrant package?
No, the new one is more than our old one. I think in the 60 grand a year, but it's 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock at night. I've been going off of memory.
If we
nine.
okayed it to a maximum of 2,000,000.
2.8 would be,
And you wouldn't do any more than
No,
you
you're
needed to.
gonna authorize a contract, so you'll see what we're gonna do, right? Short of riding back to the office and trying to get that number exact. Wasn't anything we were planning on doing. I just thought we'd pay it every year. We're paying it now. I mean, it makes sense if we could save some money, but I wasn't planning on borrowing that money. Yeah. We could know tomorrow. Alan could get all of them tomorrow. We're trying to find out in the emails when your phone gets stuff.
Gentlemen, is there any reason we couldn't just take a good, fair faith estimate, up it a little bit? We're going to sign the contracts anyhow. We're okay them to borrow a maximum.
Yeah, we would know before they
They
closed.
would know
We
before
could
they
negotiate
closed
that
on
number
that.
down.
We just can't have it under.
And you need to know what the vendor will charge for maintenance software. And we don't have that. We don't know what the discount would be or anything like that.
Right. I kind of have a half idea what the annual was, but don't want to quote that out and
Right,
wrong. But what I don't know is if we say we're guaranteed we buy 10 years worth, what that would drop down to.
Right.
But it's a significant number.
Oh, yeah, if I'm the vendor, especially if I'm the rep.
Well, no, but
I'm really excited if I'm the rep.
Yeah.
We can just make sure there's no,
Right. That's what we got to figure out.
there's no public,
So we can figure out what the savings is.
we
don't-
delayed 2 weeks before we released the video of the meeting.
Well, I can do that. I haven't released last month. So I
Oh,
haven't gotten to
you're
it.
saying because,
No, you can't because we
Yes,
have
the
a,
guy in the back.
We can have a conversation.
Commandeer his camera.
but we're not tied into purchasing if they don't want to give us a deal on the maintenance, we
Right.
don't have to
Right,
do
don't
it.
have to
We
do
just
it.
have to make
Okay.
sure we have the borrowed
That's
money
right.
there
Just
to
have to
do
be
it if
authorizing,
they give us a deal.
authorizing,
Can
because we can
yeah,
find out
can we
probably
make the number
tomorrow.
3 million and feel comfortable?
Yes,
We can make the number 3 million and feel
we can
comfortable.
come in underneath that.
And then if we don't get a deal, we go back to this 2 million.
Right.
All right, I'm going to make that motion, Madam Chair, if that works for you.
Okay, we have a motion to,
Not to exceed 3 million.
for the loan amount not to exceed 3 million. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? So moved.
So we're going to adopt the resolution,
Can we have a couple minutes to talk?
the bond resolution?
Yes. And we are going to take a quick 5-minute break over here so that you guys can talk, and we
Real
will
quick, take a
Oh,
we'll be back here in about 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Cup of coffee time, Mr. Thomas.
They meet fairly frequently.
All right. We need,
Maybe they did.
where are we at? We are on 6, correct? Well, guys, we got to get out of here before 10.
oh,
Are we done? I thought we were going to bump the number.
I thought the motion was for 3 million. Don't tell me you need more than that.
No. Mr. County Attorney, do we need to have the resolution actually adopted?
we need to adopt the resolution,
Oh.
Madam Chair. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, I was thinking, adopt the
And it needs to
resolution,
be the
right?
amended resolution.
I'm happy to walk.
Right. Let's not make that mistake. Don't we need to adopt the resolution? With the amendment.
We just need to amend the motion, please.
I make a motion, we adopt the bond resolution with the amendment. Is that enough clarity, or? The amount of the amendment is 3 million. Or the amount of the amendment is an additional million. It's 2 million with the additional million. up to $3 million.
Not to exceed.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Number 7, stipends.
No, you
for-
skipped number 6.
Oops, I'm sorry. Wishful thinking.
Well, I mean, that's fine.
Yes,
We have a resolution.
Resolution.
It was my issue last month. I think
Yep.
it's worth sending to
And
our
we've
2
heard it.
U.S. senators. I think it accurately talks about what we did. It's got the bill number in it. I make a motion to approve and send this to both senators and our congressmen.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. Now we're on 7.
Yeah, but there was no action in 7.
Yes, it is.
Is,
Let's discuss.
Well, this one we
Well,
should have action.
all right, so this is a list of what some of our board members are paid who serve on our different boards, our Planning Commission, our BCA, Social Services, and EDA, in comparison to some of the other counties. My personal opinion is you need to look at counties that are similar to us. I don't think we can compare ourselves quite yet to Stafford or Spotsylvania, or even Culpeper at this time, because they're growing leaps and bounds. But any discussion on this or any movement on this?
I have one, I'm on the Social Services Board. Our budget is set based on the current salary, so if we raise salaries, we're going to have to at least notify the Social Services Director that it's been raised. I mean, I don't know that it'll affect the budget, but the budget's set for the year. And it will have an effect because there are 7 people on it.
Make it retroactive, you can make it an active date of the new budget. I was going backwards, since we're behind. So, all right, discussion. I mean, it looks to me like we definitely need to move some of these up from what I see here. Not a lot on all of them, but my feeling is Planning Commission's pretty darn close to average. But the BZA to 50, this Social Services Board is off by $43 on the average. But what do you all want to do? Looks like they're behind, and the EDA is right on average. So, discussion, you want to table this to discuss in 2 weeks also, or do you want to move?
Madam Chair, this is quite different than the constitutional officers.
Right, because these are
people that
volunteers.
are basically volunteering. And I know years ago we did the Board of Supervisors hourly raise, and it was far lower than minimum wage. So the Planning Commission, I know they put in a lot of work. Even at $283 is probably not enough for them. And the BZA only meets a few times. And Social Services Board should probably go up to $100, and EDA should probably be, a little closer to where they are, because they're just paying mileage and gas. But I'd say move Planning Commission to 300 and Social Services to 100
And BCA to 50?
and BZA 50.
You want to put that in a motion form?
I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion. I have how's this going to throw budgets for them? Is it going to be, we got enough, you're all right? Small amount.
Planning Commission was 300, BZA was 50, and Social Services was 100. EDA was the same because they're way above the average, but
I'm not gonna.
Right, and they have their own money they need to pay. Do we want to make this effective immediately, retroactive, or new budget? Just a question.
yeah, let's move it back to July 1st, which is this fiscal year.
So we have a motion going back to, with starting these increases in July. Can
I'll
you
amend my
amend your
second,
second? And an amended second? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And
All
Madam Chair, I'm
opposed?
going to abstain since I'm on the Social Services Board, just for clarity's sake.
Wait, you get paid for that?
Yeah?
Oh, you should give that money back.
Believe me, I do.
All right, motion passes. Which takes us to number 8, which is consideration of service agreement for the jail authority for admission. Who's taking this one? We're waiting for Mr. Cully, or Ben, or... All right. Is, just a moment, please. Ben, are you taking this one, Mr. Emerson?
He's still recovering from being stuck in traffic for an hour and 40 minutes.
You have two agreements before you. One is, bless you, one is an agreement between the county and the authority for the authority to essentially run the detention facility, and it sets out the way, it just sets out the details of that. The version that you have in the agenda is there's been a slight change to it based on a meeting of the authority last week, and that's in paragraph 3, which takes out the first sentence, which allocates 3 beds in the facility to the county. That would be taken out.
So 3 is removed.
Well, the first sentence of 3 is removed. The second sentence is still in there where it says no compensation board funds will be accepted by the authority or the county in connection with the use or operation of the facility.
Okay.
It's a fairly simple agreement, actually, and so it provides for, it basically provides for the authority to perform all of the county's obligations under the ICE agreement, and it provides that funds will be paid, will come to the county, and then the county will deduct its host fee essentially and disperse the other funds to the authority so it can pay its operating expenses and that sort of thing. And it provides for, insurance to be obtained and paid. Then the second agreement is a membership agreement between the authority, Caroline County, and the town of Port Royal to admit the town as a member of the authority, so that the authority would have 2 members. It goes into detail about how the rights of the 2 different members essentially, and provides for how they would have membership on the board of the authority. The county would retain a controlling majority on the authority board, The sheriff is still on it, of course. The town would have one member on it, and the county would have 3. The town would be compensated in the amount of $10,000 as a member. And this agreement terminates. This agreement's term is the same as the county's agreement with ICE. And if that agreement terminates early for any reason, then this agreement terminates at the same time. And when this agreement terminates, Port Royal is no longer, it automatically ceases to be a member of the authority. I'd be happy to answer any questions if y'all have them. I brought a resolution that it would be, if you want to do these things, the resolution approves them and gives a few recitals as background. The other thing about the agreement between the county and the authority is that it terminates and supersedes the former services agreement, which is really completely inaccurate now and inapplicable because it primarily dealt with the relationship between the different counties and cities that were members of the authority. And since they all resigned from the authority, that whole agreement is just not
Swiss cheese.
Yeah, it's just not germane to anything. So that terminates, this agreement will terminate that agreement.
A couple questions.
Yes, Mr. Forehand.
Regarding insurance, we didn't specify limits or lines. Are we
No,
gonna
not in
do
the
that
agreement. It would just be.
Is there a separate governing contract besides this? That
No,
says they must.
It's just the authority. I don't know offhand I don't think the ICE agreement had any requirements for insurance.
No, I'm
so it's whatever,
looking at what we are as a county requiring of the authority to insulate the county operations and the county staff.
Right. We did not. I don't think anybody as yet knows, or if they do, they haven't communicated it to me exactly what would be sufficient. Although we did get some quotes. I believe you got some quotes.
We've gotten quotes from our carrier on the employee side, so we would it would be paid as part of payroll for workers' comp and additional public officials liability and jail liability, and so we just got to decide what those limits ought to be, whether $3 million or $5 million, and that type of thing. So we have quotes from our current carrier. The jail will be responsible. The authority will be responsible for ensuring the contents in the building because the authority owns the building. The county owns the land.
But the county's members on the authority board can just, based on this board's desires and recommendations and all, they can vote to require whatever that level of insurance is, whatever it is that you want, because you've got control of that board.
There's so many different. To me, this has now become a commercial agreement for the most part. We're hiring a third party authority. So there's the illegal acts by employees and theft and
there are a number of coverages.
Main lines, umbrella lines, things like that. I just my concern. This is in line with my concerns voiced when we went before. Just I want an adequate protection of county operations from this, and if we don't specify it, then it'll be bare bones minimum, and that might end up hurting us. So I just think we ought to, be aggressive with getting that identified and implemented as fast as we can. So.
We have those 2 quotes from FACORP for 2 different limits, including also the workers' comp. That's for us because they're our employees,
as well as them as an entity.
Right. No, I thought that y'all had gotten something from them to ensure the authority and the county as an additional insured liability, but I may have been wrong about that.
VML does it?
VML insures the authority.
Now, I thought there were some quotes.
No, the quotes we've got are public officials, and employee liability, raising and paying as well. This is the only workers' comp.
Mr. Emerson, As the authority with all the localities, they had insurance. What is the difference between the authority that was existing then and the authority now? Excuse me?
They don't have employees, but they are still the same authority.
So you're saying
and
they're
still operating the center. I mean, and in fact, they own the buildings. So, they would want to have property insurance, they want to have liability insurance.
But to go with Mr. Forehand's concern for the liability of the employees in the county to the county.
Right, the conduct of the employees and
So
their role.
what is different between, the jail has a lot more interface with other individuals than a normal county employee does. Do we have additional insurance? And that's really what Mr. Forehand's driving to, is what is the insurance for those employees as our employees to us? And what is that limited? And I understand Mr. Forehand's question is, he doesn't want it to be some minimum. He wants it to be something that's substantial in terms of if there's a liability.
Right. All I'm saying is I think that some of that is still being investigated, and that the county's members of the authority board are the ones that will ultimately choose what those coverages and amounts are, and they can be directed by this board to do what makes this board comfortable.
And the question is, and I'm going to ask his next question, when is we are as the authority going to do that, since we are now in business, literally, because that's something we need to do.
We've gotten the quotes from Vacor. We just need to decide if we're going to do a $3 million or $5 million.
Mr. Forehand, do you want to make a decision on that, on those numbers now?
Well, as I understand it, the 3 or 5 was for Caroline, but also I'm probably equally concerned with what the authority has as a.
I don't think they can insure the employees. They don't work for them. They're going to have to handle the property side and liability side if somebody falls, those kinds of things. But the employee side of it is we've got to obtain those through our current carrier, which is what we've gotten quotes. And so we've got a workers' comp quote and a jail officer quote, and then this public increasing some limits on that. The overall quote's about between $165 and $179,000 different, $174 between the 3 and the 5 million.
Okay. And what's the payout per occurrence? Do you recall? I'm sorry to get in the weeds on this.
No, Alan would have to pull that piece of paper up if he can get to it. But and that's with our current carrier. And so we were trying to compare that to what they had with their carrier when they were operating the facility back fully staffed.
It seems high, premium-wise. The premium seems high.
You hear all the horror stories with
but I don't think it's as high
correctional officers and
correctional. Because the workers' comp one, I got that number.
The work comp number is going to be big. Yeah. The custodial liability exposure is significant. I would expect.
No, he was looking at female, so it's 6 employees. That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. Like the VML was actually hiring workers' comp, but they put their numbers in for our payroll. That was based on that.
Does Alan? Oh,
yeah, it's coming in, we got it out of ours, right? Yeah, it comes out of it. No, it's not coming out of my $7.
All right, where are we at, gentlemen? Mr. Scully, where are we at?
Any other questions?
All right. So the jail authority is going to move forward on having a meeting, and you've been basically.
We have a meeting scheduled next Monday.
Next Monday, correct.
Do we need a motion to steer you?
Adopt that, but you also
On the insurances
need to be
and the
thinking
touch
about a
point
third
insurance.
member.
Right.
Appoint who you want to appoint as a third member.
All three.
Could we
Well,
add
it wouldn't hurt to reappoint the
all
other
three.
two.
Yeah.
But
Right now, Mr. Parton is the member, and Mr. Seeley and I are alternates. So, yeah, I think you need to appoint all three.
Do you want to do that in a separate motion, or you want to add it
We
to?
can't find it.
I do that separately.
Separately, all right. All right, any other discussion on the two agreements in front of us? And Port Royal has adopted and signed their section, so it's just up to us.
For the ease of things, I have been over these documents many times. We spent time on the phone at our last authority meeting on the phone with Mr. Emerson. The superintendent for the facility has been through this, as have many other folks. I'm to the point of, I think that we've done as much as we can. I do agree that we need to act on insurance, Mr. Forehand, and we will do that Monday, because that is on my list as well. I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the Caroline County Board of Supervisors, the resolution. Do I need to read the whole resolution?
I don't think so. We'll just put it in the minutes.
As presented on the 11th day of September.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. I have a motion and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, so moved.
And now, if you would reappoint the three members now that we've increased. Currently, Mr. Parton is the standing member, and Mr. Seeley and I are alternates. If certainly your pleasure if you want to change those up, but we need three members. The town has one, and the sheriff has one. Either the sheriff or Major Mosier serve on the sheriff's. And we have three.
Do we have a minimum that we can add? It's 5.
The agreement provides 3 from the county, 1 from Port Royal, and the statute provides for the sheriff or his designee, but it's the sheriff.
We will be now. Up to this point, we have been alternates.
All right. I move that we appoint Mr. Cully and Mr. Seeley as members of the...
And Mr. Parton, you
and
need to reappoint.
Mr. Parton to reappoint to the jail authority.
So moved.
I have
Second.
a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So moved. All right, we're getting there. All right, just about. We're almost there.
I have one question on the capital projects update.
And your question, Mr. Seeley?
Schools have disappeared completely.
We've met on that, but we didn't have time to meet on it and finalize the numbers, so we just pulled it off, so it was too confusing. But we are working our way to where we're in complete agreement of those numbers. We're just not quite there yet.
And I guess that's my concern, is that we have heard from the schools many, many times, the numbers are resolved, the money's all gone with no accounting. So, I mean, they need to be...
That's why we were trying to wipe from their system to ours to where we're in agreement. We know what's been spent, but trying to get it into the right categories of the way they looked at how they spent it is two different things.
Here is my question. Do we need a forensic audit of their last year's budget on what they spent in capital that they weren't supposed to, and what they have spent on capital that they're not aware of?
Not yet. If I can't get to an agreement, then that would certainly be a good way to do it. But I don't believe we're there yet.
Because this is drug on now, and they've tried to spend all of the contingency funds so that there's nothing left.
Yeah, but we're holding various pots of
I
that.
understand we're holding, but there's a steady push. And before that push, gets...
Well, they know they can't come back for anything else until we get to the bottom of this.
And
so
I mean, if
just
we're
gotta set up-
$1,000 off, I think there's support for a forensic audit. If they're 10,000 off, we're definitely due it. I mean, that's my opinion.
I don't think we're at that. It's just a couple of things categories that we just weren't quite straight. So,
because this has gone on now.
because, and part of it's been through two finance directors, one on each side, hadn't helped that process along. So we're close. We hope to have that done on the 25th. That's our goal.
Could I add one thing to that, Mr. Cully? We do have a county policy or an agreement that funds left over from the schools, their operating fund would be used for capital projects for the next year.
Yeah, but they would have to be appropriated, correct?
Right.
Correct.
But that's been our policy.
We made that,
It's
yeah.
pretty much been an automatic appropriation.
Correct.
What I'm having a little issue with is the fact that we're talking about sometimes Anthem funds, which was the insurance money that they got back that they wanted to use for capital projects, and there was never any agreement on Anthem funds.
Yeah, but only funds they got to use out of that you did approve. That's part of the whole accounting confusion is you're dealing with what we consider three separate pots of money. The bond money, a reversion rollover money, and the Anthem money, which then got divided into multiple pots. And the school side not necessarily tracking it in those categories.
But my point, and what I tried to discuss at our joint meeting then is, my main concern is that we save that Anthem money so that we can defray the cost of insurance next year.
Yeah, we're still holding on to all that. What we're just trying to account for what Anthem money we did approve them to spend.
Okay.
What reversion money, and that's where it's really messed up. The reversion money that we spent and we're tracking in a separate account so it would be clear for everybody, a former finance director paid that out of operations out of the school budget. And so them trying to go back with now a new finance director, digging back through how did this get paid where is where we're trying to line all those things up. So we're real close. I think we're real close on the bond money. And I think we're straight on the Anthem money. I think where we're, and Curtis, you can speak to this, I think where we've struggled is that reversion money that we had a budget year plus ago that really, Fran set it up to be handled one way, communicated that is how she wanted to handle it, and it was paid out of schools a different way.
And I understand all that confusion. My point again is there's no agreement that the Anthem money should be used for capital funds. I would like to see the Anthem money used for health insurance costs or for raises if that's the case. And I'd like to make sure we do that when you figure out the numbers.
That's certainly the board's prerogative. We've not made them any promises of what they can use the remaining Anthem money for.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussions? All right. Capital projects. Hopefully the logistics building, which this is good, the fence is the last part of that, we're done?
No, the landscaping is the last part, right?
Last.
I want my shrubs.
No, I thought the painting was the last part.
All right, calendar. Remember, we have our dinner.
No.
No, so we could have moved.
That one. They had some issues. Pam can explain that better than I can. I remember some issue, and I can't remember what it was.
I was in contact with the people from Hanover, Carolina Soil and Water Conservation, who originally contacted me about the date for September, as it is in the past.
We can't move it now.
The agencies did not get together, and it was very difficult because of the time of year with the produce running out, so they decided it was not a good time of year to have it. So they are planning for a July get-together in 2019, and they are sending us information on that.
Okay. And then we're not aware of that, so my apologies, Mr. Underwood, or we would have moved your meeting.
We did not know when Mr. Underwood asked.
So,
We didn't know till week.
Last week is when we found out.
Yeah, we'd already advertised. Thanks.
no.
I guess we've got Port Royal Pirate Day, which is Saturday and Sunday, so it'll be good to have a pirate ship up there with the rain.
It'll sail.
Yeah. Milford Day, too.
Milford Day.
They're low over there.
Might need a boat there as well. Next board meeting is the 25th. State Fair starts on Friday the 28th and runs through the following weekend.
Do we have a schedule for that?
If we get anything, we'll give those to you.
Okay.
Columbus Day officers are closed on the 8th of October, and then we have a board meeting on the 9th, right after that. Employee picnic is scheduled for the 13th, Saturday the 13th, at the Main County Park at 12 p.m. And then Harvest Festival, and also on the 13th is Sparta Day.
Correct. I was going to say,
Yeah,
I was
knew
just
that,
going to mention that
Yeah,
everything's on the 13th.
Bowling Green Harvest Festival on the 20th, and Frog Level Festival and Special Olympic Soccer on the 27th. So every Saturday, something pretty much going on in the month of October. And we only have one meeting scheduled right now, and that might be in the 9th of October. So next meeting here, 6 o'clock, the 25th.
And the conference is in November, and we need to let Pam know. 11th through the 13th, right? And if anyone planning on going to the, yeah, anyone planning on going to the conference needs to let Pam know ASAP. That's in November the 11th through 14th, 13th, something like that. All right. Closing board comments. I'll start by saying thank you all very much for hanging in there tonight. It was a little disorganized at times, but we got through it. Mr. Seeley.
I have nothing, Madam Chair.
Mr. Black.
I'll get with administration. I need to set up a time for a constituent meeting sometime in late October.
Mr. Thomas, you have anything?
Nothing other than to add that it was really nice to have Mrs. Hall speaking during our meeting, so she'll be on television.
I'll have to get her to do that more often. Mr. Forehand.
One quick thing. Several of us attended the County Park 30th anniversary. It was moved to the high school. It was a good event.
You mentioned it. You weren't here.
Sorry. Yeah, I apologize for being late to everybody. But also wanted to, I don't know if it was mentioned, but we have preliminary plans, and there's Mr. Schiebel's done some preliminary work to create a bike trail, bikes or walking trail in the county park, the county-owned property beside the park. So we will probably be coming to you at some point in the coming month or two to look at some preliminary funding to get that amenity, that low-cost amenity for the park.
Money or labor, Mr. Underwood? Money or labor? You got to do one or the other. All right, thank you, Mr. Forehand. Hearing no other comments, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. And good night. Thank you, staff.